All right, this is our first webinar call for the Elevate to Team Leader. We want this to be not a push to Diamond Group, because Diamond, guys, is so easy. Like, I know every single one of you guys right now has 8 friends or family members that trust you, believe in you, and need to be healthy and fit, and they can become coaches. So the goal is not just to become a Diamond coach, because that's easy. You guys, anybody can do that once you make the decision. Our goal is that you become a team leader, which is a part of the leadership ladder rung. So if you need the details on that, we did a team call on it about a month ago. You can also go to Coach Online Office right to the middle, and there's a team leader thing. It tells you exactly what you need to be a team leader. But we're going to teach you more of the mindset and the philosophies of what it takes to build the foundation to become that team leader right here with some of our top leaders. So the call that we wanted to start with, the topic that we wanted to start with today was perspective. And as I think of that, I think about when we were at Coach Summit just recently. I teamed up with Miguel Carrasco, and we did a we did an event, a team event. Some of you guys were there, and it was called Shine, but it was the topic that we had, and it was also the topic of our surge that we did with the Bombshell Dynasty, was choose your hard. So choose your hard. I want you to write that down. Choose your hard. As I talk about perspective today, I want to think about things that are actually hard in life. And then, you get to make a choice. Like, we're in this life right now. We're in this present moment as Team Beachbody coaches, and you get to choose your hard. And so I want you to think about that as we go about this topic. So it's important that you take ownership of your business and really understand what it means to be a team leader. Like, what are the guidelines, the specific benchmarks you have to hit in your business to be able to achieve that first and foremost. But we're going to talk about perspective and looking at this business. So I'm going to tell you a little background story, few stories about myself. And as I tell it, I'm just going to speak to you as why I do that. The reason I'm going to tell so many stories is because when I tell a story or something I've been through, you think about your life. You begin to think about moments in your life. If I talk about my dad, you're going to talk about your dad. If I talk about an argument with my wife, you're going to think about an argument with your spouse. If I talk about a job where I work too many hours, you're going to start thinking about a job you work too many hours. So I want you to take special note of that, why I do that behind the scenes, so you can understand, hey, that's what you can do in your business when you're talking to people, when you're inviting people, when you're connecting with people. So I want you guys to understand a little bit of my work background before we get into Team Beachbody coaching. So my work background, I remember the first job I had, I was 13 years old. And I remember I live in Idaho, so we have a ton of potato fields. So my first job was moving pipe. So I moved pipe. So there's large sprinkler pipes full of mud and water. And my job at 13 years old was to wear big water wading boots and walk through the deep mud and move one pipe. I'd grab one pipe, I'd unhook it, I'd lift it up, drain the water, and I'd carry it about 50 yards across the field, set it down, attach it. I'd go back, get the other one, lift it out, pour the water out, move it. And I moved 200 pipe every single morning at 3:30 in the morning before school. So I had a strong work ethic from very young. And I'll tell you guys what, that was so hard. Like, I was so exhausted and tired when I would go to work in the morning from that job. So as I think about it, and I'm going to relate to Beachbody, that was so hard compared to sitting behind a laptop and saying, hey, we're doing a coach opportunity webinar this Thursday, kind of help you understand what I do as a coach, why I'm so excited about health and fitness. If I invited you to come watch the webinar with me, would you join? That is so easy compared to getting up at 3 o'clock and moving pipe in the dark. So the next job that I had, I really, really wanted so badly to go to what was called the Boy Scouts of America Jamboree. So the Boy Scouts of America Jamboree, what that was is it was a trip back east, and I'd never flown before. And I believe I was 15 years old. I'd never flown. They were going to give us a tour of all the cool historic stuff on the East Coast, Washington, D.C., New York City, everything on that coast, and then end up in Disney World. I'd never flown in my life. And so I wanted to go, but my parents told me, not that they told me, but we didn't have the extra money for that trip. It was like $2,200, $2,000, it was like just over $2,000. So, but they said, if you want, the thing I love about what they did for me is they didn't tell me I couldn't go. They told me I needed to earn the money. So they helped me talk to a local pizza place. And for those of you that are from Idaho Falls, it was Leo's Place Pizza. And I had to do a sales pitch, basically. Tell them that I wanted to go on this trip with the Boy Scouts, what it meant to me, and ask him if I could sell pizzas for him. And then I went door to door, and I sold pizzas. I knocked on doors in my Boy Scout uniform, which isn't the coolest thing to do when you're 15 years old. But I did it because I wanted to go so badly. And a lot of people said no, and some people said yes. And one thing I'm thinking about as I talk about that story now is the original thing is I had these coupons. I'd sell them the coupon. Oh, no. I had a sheet, I remember. I wrote their name, what pizza they wanted, how many. They paid me, and then I delivered it. And, man, that was so much work because I had to go have them make the pizzas, then I had to go deliver the pizzas. So we came up with a better solution, which was a coupon where I sold them the coupon, then they could go pick up their own pizza. So we adjusted our approach, right? Like we just started selling pizzas. We're like, hey, this is a lot of work. We could do this better. And we adjust the approach as we went. So that was my next job. Next, I went on to Dairy. I worked at Dairy Queen. That was my first real job, I guess, when I was old enough to work. And I remember, it's funny how you look back at your life and you realize that we give meaning to things. I was upset at that job because I wanted so bad to work the drive-through or be the guy at the front taking the orders, talking on the thing, hey, fries down or whatever it was, you know. And I wanted to do that, but the owner at the time was making me sweep making me cut the grass, making me sweep, making me paint, making me fix the hinges in the bathroom, making me go to his shop and work like outside of Dairy Queen, but I clocked in at Dairy Queen, if that makes sense. But and I looked at that as like a punishment, like maybe I'm not good enough. And it's funny how we give ourselves that meaning. But as I look back, he looked at me as the guy that could do everything, right? But I gave the meaning of that I wasn't good enough to be the guy at the front or to run the drive-through. So realize that about yourself is stop telling yourself you're not good enough to do certain things. And that was my second job. And then I remember right out of I dropped out of college. For those of you that don't know, I dropped out of dental. I wanted to be an orthodontist. Realized I don't like chemistry and all those programs, so I quit. I dropped out of school and I went to be to a technical school to be a dental lab technician. So when I went there, I needed a job when I was in school, and I remember looking in the classifieds, and there was this job that said delivering medical advices. Man, they scammed me so good because it was selling vacuums that had a really nice filter, apparently. So I went and sold vacuums door to door, and I was really good at it. And that came from the skills that I learned as a missionary for my church. Okay, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, because that's a picture I put in the Elevate to Diamond thing, is I was really good at it because I could knock on someone's door and make an impression on them where they trusted me to let me in. And then all I had to do is give the simple presentation and ask for the sale. The only thing is, after a little bit, guys, I want you guys to understand about that. I'd never been in sales before that, but I had that experience as a missionary. I went in, there was this contest to win a free cruise. I'd never been on a cruise before. And the contest was 6 months long, and I entered 3 months into the contest. And I said, I'm going to win that cruise. I'm going to be in the top 3 to go on that trip. You guys, I ended up winning that trip, that cruise, by selling vacuums. But one thing I want you guys to understand about that is that was really hard. And the reason that it was really hard is because I don't believe that any vacuum is worth $2,800. Right? I don't believe that any vacuum is worth $2,800, but I could sell it because they bought me. They bought me, and it worked, but it didn't align with my core values. So one day I went to a house, and I could tell that they were miserably poor, and they sent you to appointments with that company. Now, it wasn't Kirby, it was Filter Queen. And I went to this house. I walked in, they let me in, they loved me. I was about to give my presentation. I was like, hey, I got an important phone call I got to make. And I left, and I went out and called my manager. I said, hey, I can't do it. I can't do this presentation here. And he told me that I have to do it, get in there and do the presentation, or you'll be fired. And I walked away from that job because it didn't align with who I was. So I walked out of that. But that was hard to go in and sell something that I knew people didn't need for a lot of money. that was really hard. So I walked away and didn't do that, didn't align with who I was. So the next job that I had, guys, I got a job at Taco Time. So I'm back in the food industry. I quickly became the manager there and the night manager. So I was going to school every day. I'm helping you guys get things into perspective. I'm going to school every morning from 8 to 5, and then 5:30 till midnight, I worked as the manager. And I worked 7 days a week. There was no other night manager on that shift. And I did that for like 8 months straight. And then one day I asked if we could hire or I could train another night manager that could at least work 1 or 2 nights so I could have a night off. And they said no. So what did I do? I walked away. And then I finished school and I went to a dental lab. I got my first job. I want you guys to understand about me so you can understand this part is I worked super hard in dental lab school. I was the best in my class. And the reason I know that, I guess, is I was the only one that got referred to a job right out of school in Houston. I didn't want to move there, so I didn't take it, but I took another job they offered to me in Salt Lake, which is where I was in school. And it was just the owner and me. And it was cool because when I went for the interview, I passed with flying colors on what I could do. And he gave me my job. It was $11 an hour. And remember, I'm the best in my class. I paid $15,000 for those 8 months of school. And I was the best in my class. And he's like, hey, here's the goal. I'm going to retire in a few years. So you work really hard and you can take this business from me. You can purchase this business from me over the next few years. So I worked my butt off. And so give you guys an idea, I could do start to finish, make a crown, a tooth. I could make 18 in one day from start to finish, from the mold, the metalwork, and porcelain. And those sell for $450 a piece about. So I was doing 18 pieces a day by the end of 2 years. I'm really good at this. We'll just say it like that. And obviously I have room for improvement. And I made $11 an hour with no insurance. Well, when those 2 years came and I was doing that amount, I had my first baby, Kina. She's my 9-year-old. We had her with the help of Medicare and WIC government support because I'm making $11 an hour. And I remember asking him, hey, we don't get insurance. I just had my baby. I'm wondering if I could have a raise. I feel like I'm doing really good here. And here's the bad. I don't want to talk bad about him, but he golfed every Friday when I was in the shop. He'd leave every Wednesday for a massage. He'd be gone for like 2 hours, and I was always there. Just me and him, and I was doing a lot of the work. So I felt I deserved a raise. He told me that I wasn't worth it yet, and I just barely had my baby. So I left. I walked away, and I said, I'm going to get a better dental lab job in Idaho Falls. Couldn't find one in Idaho Falls, but we moved to Idaho Falls, looked for a job. I got offered $8 an hour for my expertise for that job I went to school for $15,000, and that I was really good at. And I got an offer for $8 an hour, which wouldn't cut it. So that's where I started. For those of you who know, I worked at a steel factory when I left for Beachbody. I worked in a steel factory. I got a job for $9.50 to sweeping floors at a factory. So, but I had a baby to take care of. I had a 3-month-old to take care of in this new family. So I worked super hard. I swept really hard. But what I want you guys to understand about me, so you can apply this to your Beachbody business, is my job was to sweep floors. Okay. But I quickly found out that I could sweep my section of floors in like 2 hours. And my job is an 8-hour-a-day job, right? So what I would do is I would sweep and then I would help somebody else. I would sweep and then I would ask what else I could do. I would sweep and then I was fascinated by stuff, how things worked. I was curious. We'll put it as curious. You got to be curious. So I would look up, I would go to the guy using a laser to cut metal. I'm like, dude, how does this work? I would help him load the sheet of metal on. I was like, okay, how does the program work? I don't understand how that laser just cuts exactly what you want. So he'd explain it to me and I'd say, hey, can I try that? And he would teach me how. So you've heard me say this before. It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than have an opportunity and not be prepared. Because I would do my job quickly, be curious, and learn from other people. One day, the guy that operated that machine had an issue with his knees, and he had to go get a knee surgery, and he was out of work for 2 weeks. Well, there was nobody else to run that machine but this guy named Scotty that said, hey, I know how to do that. And they didn't train me or pay me to do that, but I learned that on my own. So that opportunity came, and I was prepared. So I became the guy that ran that machine. So I still swept. and I ran the machine at the same time. Well, I started running the machine. How the machine works, so I can help you guys understand, is I like to work. I like to get things done. And so sometimes that machine would cut for 24 hours. Once you put the metal on, load it up, it would cut for 20. And you had to just stand there like this. In case it broke down, you had to fix it. So what I would do next is I was curious on how the whole process worked. I knew that the welders were some of the highest earning people in the company. And these welders would spend a lot of their time coming down and looking through the piles of metal that we'd cut the metal and we'd just throw it on these rolling carts. And I noticed they would spend time searching for their parts. And so I looked at that and I'm like, wow, these guys are wasting a lot of time looking for parts. Like, that's something that I could help with. And so I went to the owner of the company. I didn't wait for the owner to say, hey, I'm going to promote you to this or to that. I said, hey, these guys that are putting these machines together, the welders, they're spending a lot of time, there's a lot of confusion. They're like spending a lot of time looking for pieces. And I just asked them, could I have like a whiteboard? And I'm going to try to figure out how to organize this and make it easier. So I just came up with a thing where I would deal with the engineers. I would find out which projects they were working on, who was building it, which I wasn't asked to do, right? And then I would go, and then when those pieces, because I cut the metal, I cut the pieces, I would then organize them into job. And on the whiteboard, I wrote who was working on what job, what number it was. And then I got the other sweepers and myself to help deliver those straight to workers, so they never had to leave their spot. So I created a system, right? But remember, my job was just to, at that point now, to run that machine. But during that same time, I also was curious and learned how to run the other two CNC machines. And I also went into my boss that was programming my machine and asked him how that worked. And I asked him if I could sit down and try it with him. And so little by little, guys, I went from running that machine and running that program to creating basically a position to where I was managing the flow of the shop. Okay, and so it's just being creative, thinking, how can I make things better? How can I make things easier? And so that same thing is what I've put into Beachbody. How can I train coaches better? How can we run better challenge groups? How can we run a group to help elevate our leaders, right? It's always just being creative, not worrying about failing or is it going to work or not, just working on creating that. So that's how I eventually became the guy that programmed all those machines and managed the flow. And then I still wasn't happy with that. I said, what else can I do? What else can I do in this place? And so I became involved with the service department. And that's when I left my job. When I left for Beachbody, I ran the service department, the shipping department, the global shipping department, and I wrote the service manuals. So I was moving up through the company, but on my own terms. I was asking for it. So that would be like you guys saying, I'm just looking at something. That would be like Phil and Angela saying, hey, Scotty, like I've kind of got this challenge group thing going down. I need to learn how to present the opportunity. Can I come present an opportunity, or is there something I could do to help teach others what I've already learned? So that's kind of the process, if you were to relate this into Beachbody, is taking, once you learn something, going out and asking, what else can I do? How else can I serve? How else can I help? How else can I make it easier for everybody else coming behind us? So here's what I understood about that, guys, is while I was working that, I was working 12 hours a day. As you guys know, I'm not going to tell that story. Gabby was working 8 hours a night. We still weren't able to keep up with our bills. So what I thought about, and this is where perspective really comes into, I was doing 3 people's jobs: service department, shipping department, writing manuals. At that point, my job was only write manuals. That was my title. But I was doing helping with the service department and running the shipping. So to put in perspective, I was like, I was working 3 jobs for 1 job's pay. I made $16. In those 5 years, I went from $9 an hour to $16.80 when I left. And I was doing 12 hours a day every Saturday and working 3 jobs. Okay. So I look at my track record, I can become the head foreman or head engineer or a part of the leadership of this company, right? With that track, I'm only 5 years in. At 5 more years, 10 more years, I can be working side by side with the CEO. I can do it because I've been working like that and moving up. But here's where you put into perspective. I had worked 5 years, 12 hours a day, okay? And 3 people's job for $16 an hour, okay? I looked at the top earning people in the company. We're in a small town, so the top earning people make about $25 an hour. So this is where I got to look at I got to look at the picture. I got to look at perspective. I can spend another 10 years working 12 hours a day and become the head foreman or the head engineer. I can do that. It's going to take 5-10 years, but I can be there for another $9 an hour, make $25 an hour, which is a good amount of money in Idaho Falls. Okay. So, but what I looked at when I talk about perspective is I looked at that and I looked at the head engineer, the head foreman, and the leadership, and they are miserable. They are miserable. They look like they're, and I don't mean this in an offensive way, but they look 10, 15, 20 years older than they actually are because of the amount of work they've done in a steel factory. They're not happy. Every day, they're just grumpy. It's that like the only conversation you have with them other than when they're upset at you is, hey, what's going on? And that you hear, just another day in paradise. 3 more days out of the weekend. And like, I looked at my life and I didn't want that. Okay. I didn't want that. Even if it would have been $35 an hour, let's say, I did not want a life that looked like that. It's not what I pictured my life looking like. Being at work 5 to 5, having my wife at work at nights, and being surrounded by that type of people. So to put into perspective, guys, is and I'll hit on this a couple of times. Even if you put 10 years, most of you guys have not even been in this I've only been in for 5.5 years. If you put 10 years in consistently with full belief in the products, yourself, and the opportunity, like I fully believe you can completely replace any job that any of you guys have. But I'm saying like 10 years. So it's either, do you move up through your company where you're at right now, or do you put this time into this opportunity, this company that you have right now? Because I've met thousands of people that have completely replaced their income or paid off their credit cards or achieved things they never imagined before. So it's really taking a look at the big, like pulling your head up for a minute. Like if you're frustrated that you're, and like, for example, I have a leader that's frustrated that he's only making $1,000 a month. And I was like, dude, like, do you know how many people I know in Idaho, just my town alone, if they made an extra $1,000 a month, their life would be completely different. Their stress levels would be different. They'd be able to pay their mortgage or pay their car off, get out of some credit card debt with that. So it's putting into perspective. Like Beachbody Beachbody could have been a complete infomercial company where we love the workouts, we love the programs, but we never do anything. We never get paid for it, right? Like Carl gave us that opportunity. So I think it's good to look at that perspective sometimes. Like he does not have to do that. So when I look at that, I look at like when I sat at Idaho Steel, and I want you guys to wonder if you guys have ever done this before. I used to write out how to pay because my mortgage was the thing that made me work 12 hours a day. It was the reason that Gabby went to work. So I used to write out like, how can I pay off my mortgage in 15 years? I do the little calculator online, and I'm like, shoot, like that, no way that's possible where I'm at right now. So it got me thinking outside the box, like, okay, maybe I could start a business. I remember going to my church leader, and I didn't know at the time, but he's the CEO of another network marketing company. I had no idea because he doesn't talk about that at church because he says he doesn't want to mix church with his business. So he, for example, is the owner of one hotel, a huge hotel here in Idaho Falls, and 17 gas stations, and the CEO of a network marketing company. So he's very successful. So I asked him, dude, I know that I'm a hard worker. I should be able to create something for myself where I'm not working this many hours. So he gave me ideas on traditional businesses, gave me numbers about location, about things that he think would work that I could do. And I remember looking at these options, and each of them cost at least $200,000 to get started. And I was too afraid to invest in $200,000, right? To pay $80,000 for a franchise, pay $150,000 for a building or the location or to rent the location. But I was writing those ideas down. I was putting all those ideas on paper and writing them down. And I remember getting some and trying to squeeze around it, like trying to figure out how I could get all the equipment for the business on Craigslist. And then like, oh, what if I get crappy stuff? And I was writing that kind of stuff down. That's the way my mind thought because I was trying to figure a way out. or something that I could work on. And eventually, guys, I started, I made a like page, and I started because I programmed and I used the cutting machines. I started a sign making business where I built custom signs for cabins and homes. And you may have seen some on my cabin or my visualization video, like I made that during that time. So I started that, and I worked on it in my spare time at night. And guys, to give you guys perspective, I didn't have to have overhead. I didn't have to have a place to do it from. All I needed was a laptop, and then to work with the company I work for a deal to cut the metal in the metal. But guys, it would take me 30 to 40 hours on AutoCAD to custom design a sign. And I didn't want to rip people. I felt like, because I didn't know what it's like to have money. So like to sell someone a sign for $150 for their home, a custom sign, that was like the best I could do to even break a profit. And when I say break a profit, I made like $10, So as I made more than $10, but if you calculate my time, I made probably like 18 cents an hour. By the time I paid for the metal, the cutting, and the 30 hours of my time to design that sign, I made like 18 cents an hour. So that's the way I started. I made about 25 signs, and people loved them, and people were asking for them, and I was making more and more and more. But the thing is, I can only make so many signs, and I can't get any faster unless someone wants the exact sign somebody else got. And so I couldn't really make an income doing that very good. Like I got to the point sometimes where I could profit $50. But guys, to give you guys perspective, that's a lot of work for very little money. So I want to move on from that. That's a little bit of my experience. So you guys are probably thinking of some of the ways you guys have tried to pay off your mortgage faster, pay off your credit card. You're doing all kinds of different things and ideas. I was reading, and I'm going to read some of this. I was reading an article by Seth Godin. He's the author of Start With Why and Tribes. Great books, by the way. Written, and it says, he mentions it takes about 6 years. I love this. It takes about 6 years of hard work to become an overnight success. I know a lot of people look at me like that, like, oh my gosh, she's an overnight success. Guys, I was a success in the making. Like I developed those hard work and those skills over a lot of time and a lot of 7-day work days a week. Trying and failing and learning. Like I had to learn how to market signs, right, on Facebook with my little like page. I had to be creative. And so I started all that process right before becoming a coach. And what I want you guys to understand, I've been a coach for 5.5 years. If you haven't read the book GoPro by Eric Worre, it takes 7 years to become a professional at this type of business. So 7 years. Okay. Write that down. 7 years to become a professional. So are you really working right now with the mindset of I'm building and developing my skills to become a professional in 7 years? Or are you working like, oh my gosh, this guy won't even respond. He said he's going to buy a challenge pack and he won't buy it. Maybe this doesn't work for me. Like what type of mindset are you working with? What kind of perspective do you have on this business and what it takes to be successful? You can't be studying the plan. You got to learn and study what other people are doing, but you can't just study. You got to practice, execute, work on your craft, building your craft and finding your talents in this business. And it takes 7 years. So I'm not even a professional yet. And then when I think of that, it takes 7 years to become a professional. Then you're really good at it. Then you can really enjoy the next 7 years as you work in your most excellent zone, right? So that's like thinking 15 years out. Like you got to look at the bigger perspective of this picture of what we're talking about here. So 7 years, write that down. So if you've been complaining over the past year that you're not where you're at or you haven't made an income that you want yet, you got to have a reality check and realize that you haven't developed the skills yet. So are you working on developing the skills or spending more time complaining on why it's not working? So guys, I still have a ton of failures, like a ton of failures. Just to be vulnerable with you guys right now, I worked on fixing some things in my life. We moved forward to 14-star. I'm a 7-star right now, right? We're still not where we need to be, but we're going to show up every day. Like, how can I improve myself? How can I improve my skills? How can I help other people improve themselves and their leadership so that we can get to that point where we are a professional team? So you got to have that bigger mindset. So I'm going to give you guys a couple examples to put into perspective, and I'm going to use big examples, right? And I'm going to have to read some of these, so I want to give straight facts. Bill Gates founded Microsoft in 1975. Okay. To develop, his original goal is to develop and sell basic interpreters for it was called the 8800. 6 years later, he landed a contract with IBM to build their operating system. So that's six years later. It was still another 5 years after that before they went public. So 8 years, they got the contract. 5 years later, they took their company public. And then he became an overnight success of $350 million. Guys, that's 13 years before they went public, and that company went to that level of success. It took Steve Jobs, and these are big examples, guys. It took Steve Jobs 2 decades to become the overnight success that he is. Started in 1976. They didn't get on the map until 1984. So they started in the garage in 1976, got on the map in 1984. So 8 years later, they struggled through the 80s and the 90s until they invented the Mac, the iMac, and other consumer products. So look at how long that took. Next, Google. They started working on Google in 1996. 3 years later, in 1999, a few people had even heard of it yet. But add in another 5 years. So 3 years, nobody really heard of it. They've been working on it 3 years. And then 5 years later, they made it. They went public in 2004. And then let's talk about Facebook really quick. While attending Harvard as a sophomore, he originally started it as it was called Face Mash. So Mark Zuckerberg called it Face Mash in 2003 just to get the loss of his girlfriend off of his mind. Okay, so that's what he created that for. Facebook, this is the part that I love. In 2005, so 2 years later, Facebook showed a yearly net loss of $3.63 million. So yearly net loss of that company and that business was $3.63 million. 5 years later, it became the overnight success that we see as Facebook, and now has 400 million users worldwide. So my question is, would you have quit when it was at a $3.63 million loss after 3 years? So that's when I look at the perspective. I'm like, if you're making $500 a month consistently after 3 years, you're doing a lot better than Facebook did as Mark built the company Facebook. So it takes a lot of looking at the perspective on what's hard, what's not hard. It's a lot harder to lose $363 million every year than it is to what? Get 10 no's, get 30 no's and 1 yes, and then you get to change that person's life. Like, what's hard? What's hard about that, right? So a lot of times we got to look at a bigger perspective. So are you really working on a bigger mindset, a bigger picture as you work on your business on the 4 vital behaviors? So, sorry guys, I got a frog in my throat. Let me take a drink. So I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to show you guys my business. Okay. I'm going to give you another quick example. My band's playing today with a band called Smile Empty Soul. I listened to those guys all the time in the early 2000s. We also got to play with my favorite band, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, Powerman 5000, like all these big bands that I love and have looked up to. We get to open all of these shows. We just opened for a band called Asking Alexandria, which like every video they have on YouTube has like 20 million views. It's like the new biggest hard rock band. So we get to open for these bands and people can look at us and be like, wow, that's like an overnight success. Guys, I've been playing the guitar for 25 years. I've been in like I've been in bands since I was 14 years old. I wanted to be a rock star musician. It took 25 years before I could play shows with bands like that. Okay. It took me like 10 bands to find the right combination to make that happen, the right people to make that happen. And I want you guys to know something else bigger than that. The only reason we get to do that, there's other bands better than us, but we tell the story better on social media. And I learned that from Beachbody coaching. Does that make sense? So that dream was accomplished because I became a coach and I learned the skills of marketing and how to connect with an audience and how to promote ourselves to the guys that bring these bands in. So they say, we want that band because we know they're going to promote and they're going to bring people. Does that make sense? Not because we're the best, but we know how to bring people to the show because I take what I learned as a Beachbody coach and apply it to the band. So learning the things as a Beachbody coach is going to serve you much bigger than just building your Beachbody business. If you have a big charity in the future you want to help, a big cause, you're going to be able to do that because of the skills you learn. But you're not going to learn the skills if you're complaining about why people are telling you no. So I'm going to give you guys an example. This is to stay directly in this team page. I don't want these numbers outside of the team page publicly on Facebook, YouTube. This stuff is not going out there. But I worked, guys, when I decided I was going to become a coach on April 11th, 2011, I've never missed Success Club. I made a real resolve that I was bringing my wife home from work and that I was not going to work overtime anymore. This was my answer and my solution because I was like, holy crap, Beachbody pays you 25% commission. Like I got to make like 5 signs to make a $30 commission. And 5 signs takes me like 8 weeks. I can surely find somebody that wants to do P90X and Shakeology faster than I can make those signs and much easier than making those signs. So I worked my butt off. I worked 7 days a week. I want you guys to see the bigger picture. I listened to Think and Grow Rich, Millionaire Next Door, The Slight Edge, and 90 Days of Excellence with Craig Holiday over 60 times each in my first year. The entire 12 hours at work, it was in my headphone. So that's how much personal development did. And I worked every night from 8 o'clock to 10:30, 11, and eventually 12. I worked every lunch hour. So I worked 7 days a week, 4 to 6 hours a night. Made a ton of sacrifices. You guys can watch that video. But I worked that much. Guys, I worked that much. And at the end of my 1 year mark, I was making for my year, if I were to take what's my yearly income at my 1 year mark, it was $4,800. So, and that was a ton of work every single day. But why did I do that? Because I was so in love with seeing people transform their life. Okay, I was so in love with people transforming their life. I also was told by Craig Holiday, every single action and activity that you do in this business, if done with the right mindset, will pay you back in the future. And I remember him telling me a story about he owned a roofing company. And every year, like he would profit and make, his $50,000 that he could take home from his roofing company or whatever the number was. But year after year, it started at 0. On January 1st, it was at 0. He had to find new customers. He had to find new roofs. And when he found network marketing, it doesn't start at 0. So what I understood is I made $4,800, but it doesn't start at $4,800. It's at $4,800 and it compounds. So I looked at that perspective. I was like, holy crap. Like if I do the signs, it never compounds. It's me working and it starts at 0 every time. So the end of that first year, my yearly income, if I were to, that 1099 would be $4,800 for the year. So I look at my, and at the end of my 1 year mark, that compounded to $84,804 a year. Okay. The end of the 2 year mark, it was at $375,432 a year. The end of the 4 year mark, it was $810,156. The end of the 5 year mark, it was at $964,020 a year income. The 5th year mark, it was $1,093,872. Okay. So you can look back at it and you could be, okay, I worked 5 hours. What's the math on that? 35 hours a week times 52 weeks. How many hours is that? Somebody calculate that for me. Because that's about, if you were to take the average, how many hours I worked. What is that? Like 35 hours a week times 52 weeks. Somebody give me that number if you could. Okay. Wait, what was I trying to do? 30. Okay, so what is it? 1,560. What is the math I'm trying? I just totally got lost. 1,500. So if I take 35 hours a week times 52. I worked approximately 1,500 hours, okay? 1,500 hours my first year. Now take that 1,500 hours, or now take that $4,800. Somebody do that for me. Take $4,800 and divide it by 1,500 for me. No, to the 4,800, so 3.2. No, that's not right. So 4,800 divided by 1,500. Oh, 3.2. So I made, what is that? So I made like $3.2 an hour. I made $3.20 an hour on my business the first year. That's it. Okay. $3.20 an hour. How many of you guys will go take a job right now for $3.20 an hour? Like to help pay the bills, like take a second job. How many of you guys? Nobody, right? So you got to look at the perspective of what this business will do, the bigger picture. If you realize that this type of business compounds, it does not compound if you stop or if you complain, okay? You got to have the mindset, and I'll help you guys adopt this mindset that I have, is like there's a ton of problems, there's a ton of issues with dealing with people, with building a company or building a business or a culture. But you can only spend 5% of your time on the problem and 95% of the time on the solution. So you've got to have that type of mindset. So that's a little bit of perspective. But what I want you guys to understand is, and I'm going to help you understand this perspective. If you're, let's say it's 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, I'm going to get someone to sell their calculator on them. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to help you see a bigger picture here. So I made $3 an hour the first year, right? But I did not make $3 an hour that year, because every action that you take in this business, if done with the right mindset, will pay you back in the future. So I want you to take the 5-year mark of 1 million. Someone do this on the calculator. 1,093,872, and divide that by 5 years. What is that amount? Is this making sense to people, what I'm doing here? Making sense to you guys? Okay, somebody give me that number. Do we need it again? 1,093,872. So 109,3872. So Carrie Voss says 218,774. So that year when it appeared that I made only 4,800, if I took the past 5 years and divided our yearly income right now, it's $218,000 a year. But what I want you guys to understand, that's just the yearly income. If you added year after year, took all those numbers right there and added them together and divided by 5, it's going to be, I did the number once, it's near $500,000 a year. Like if you took my 5-year income, my 4-year income, my 3-year, those numbers I gave you, and you divided it by the 5 years, it's nearly $500,000 a year. So that first year when it appeared I made only $3 an hour, after staying true to the process for 5 years with the right mindset and reading over 400 books and working on continually increasing and bettering myself and other people, it actually came to, I made that year $500,000. So that's what I want you guys to see about the bigger picture about this business. And I'm saying some of this, you can't be focused on the money. You cannot be focused on the money. It's got to be people first and transforming their lives. But I'm going to give you guys an example so you guys can see the bigger picture on the perspective. And this is in this group only. Lindsay made $3.5 million last year with Beachbody. Okay. And that's 6 years as a coach. So, and she has no upline. She's a coach lead that has no sponsor coach. Okay. I want you guys to think about it. She had nobody like what Kendra and I and Jennifer and Brigitte are doing right now for her. She had nobody doing that for her. but she realized that this was an opportunity and she was not going to let it pass it by. So what I want you guys to understand is you look at perspective. I'm going to give you guys a bigger picture about what this has done for us. And this is going to be a hurtful phrase. Like, I believe sometimes as a coach, and when you're influencing somebody, remember I'm talking you through things as I do them, is a lot of times we're all about beach. We got to make people feel good. We got to make people feel good, right? I think it's our goal is to help them feel their pain so that they take action and change it so they can truly feel good. Because we can't just fluff them up and make them feel good, because that won't last. You got to help them feel their pain, identify what it is, and then show them the solution. So what I want you guys to understand about the bigger picture, I don't care about the money. Like, Beachbody could take our entire, well, they can't take our team because you guys would be gone. They could take everything and wipe it out, and we would have and have nothing, right? Well, I want you to see the bigger picture. They could cut it all out. Like, I believe Beachbody is going to, like, guys, I'm on the CAB, the Coach Advisory Board. We're going out of this country. Like, what? Like, we're going to expand to other countries. Can you even imagine what that's going to be like? So, like, we're going far. My kids are going to be coaches one day. Like, I know that. But let's just say Beachbody cut it out from under us, took everything, wiped out Team Beachbody. I have no Beachbody income. I have no team per se. What I want you guys to understand is that we have built the skill set and built the relationships to do it again with another product we believe in. Do you guys understand that part? Like, I'm not leaving. I'm never leaving this company. Like, I can make that promise and commitment to you guys. I'll always be here. But should something happen 15, 20 years from now, if you work like the level that we're working at and you see our leaders working at, you're building the skill set to do anything. Guys, that CEO of that other network marketing company at my about 2.5-year mark, no, it was about my 2-year mark, he offered me a job in the top leadership of his company for $250,000 a year. I made $35,000 at Idaho Steel. Like, that's a guaranteed $250,000 income. That's a huge income in Idaho Falls. Like, I don't even know anybody that makes that amount of money in Idaho Falls personally, even today. So, but guys, that came from building the mindset and the skills through all the books and applying everything that we're learning as a coach, not from selling challenge packs, not from recruiting coaches, from doing the process, from being in action with the process. Okay. So that's a bigger perspective. Like, I know, and I kind of mentioned this, I know that we could take, let's say 5 years from now, if I wanted, like, I'm an archer. I love archery hunting. I also love fishing. I could take and I could build a website. I could tell the story about fathers and sons or grandparents or generations of hunting. And I could video it and because I know how to make videos. And I could tell the story, and I could attract people that want to go hunting, and I could guide hunting. Or I could sell bows. I could sell archery equipment. And I could make a living sitting on my laptop in my cabin without Beachbody. Does that make sense? All of that came from the things I learned as a Beachbody coach. So look at the bigger perspective. Learn the skills and the belief in yourself by taking action and work. Like, you have incredible people around you right now. I don't know what business outside of this, they're going to come tell you every secret that they have to help you become successful. Like, if you go to scottyhobbs.com, my website, there's a coach training tab. Both diamond trainings we've done before, I have all of it there for anybody in the world to watch. And I tell you exactly how I word my blog post, why I speak in my videos the way I do, why I put a link into what I link it to, and why I do that, and what I do once they click the link. Like, step by step, I give every detail on how I get a prospect to email me so that I can get on the phone. And I tell you how, and I've recorded myself on the phone with them, talking to them, so you can see that. And I have all of that there for you guys to watch. What kind of business will multiple millionaires or super successful entrepreneurs come tell you this is exactly what you need to do? So look at that perspective. If you're in any other industry or trying to build any other business, they're going to try to tear you down and knock you off the platform. They're going to try to take you out. So look at that perspective. So as you look at that, I read your guys' goals. Those 3 questions I asked with your why, I read them. My question to you, to put it into perspective, what other way do you have to accomplish that goal without leaving the house and leaving your family more time out of the day? What other way do you have to accomplish that goal without getting another job or investing a couple $100,000? What other way do you have to accomplish that? I want you to think about that. The next thing I want you guys to know, this is a personal thing. Gabby and I, we've been married for 10 years. Prior to Beachbody, we didn't know how to communicate. And we used to get upset at each other. And she would leave and go to Salt Lake City. She would just get up and leave. I would get up and leave, and I would go to my cousin's house. I'd sleep on the couch, I'd drink beer, and play Call of Duty. And I wouldn't come back. We'd be mad at each other because we didn't know how to communicate. Since starting Beachbody, we have never left the house. Guys, you cannot put a price on that. That's from the process of Team Beachbody. By surrounding ourselves with good people, learning how to communicate with people, learning how to ask the right questions instead of just getting upset or emotional about things. Okay? So that, you cannot put a price on that. Look at that perspective. I'll always be a coach because of that. Another thing, and this is the hard one that I have to tell you. We have, and guys, it came from one person. One person told me this. Craig Holiday told me this. He said, Scotty, I was sitting in the hotel. He came for a Super Saturday. He said, Scotty, he's like, when my son was born, I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to be on the roof building houses. I swaddled that little guy up like a football, and I could hold him at my house while I worked. I could be on the phone with people holding my son. I never missed a day. And I remember oh my gosh, how cool would that be? How cool would that be? And what I want you guys to know, I took that. It was not a training. It was not a how-to. It was a why. And I want you guys to understand, my two sons were born because I took this opportunity and ran with it. I'm not saying that I had the time to be there at the hospital. I didn't have to ask for time off. I got to spend every minute with them. Not that. My sons would not be here if it were not for Team Beachbody, because we would not have been able to pay for them and afford it. Okay? I would not have Caleb and Malik had it not been for this opportunity. Put that into perspective, right? Because I took this opportunity and ran with it, we have 5 children versus 3. That's huge. And the thing is that I want you guys to understand, that's the hard thing to say, is I've had more time with my 5 kids than most of you guys have had with your children, or will have in 18 years, unless you take this opportunity and you work on it. I want you to put that in. Think about 10 years ago. Gabby and I got married 10 years ago. How fast did that go? Think about 5 years ago. How fast have those 5 years gone? It seems like yesterday my daughter was born. She's 9. So what is 9 more years? That's 18. So I want you to think about your kids, think about their lives, think about your family. Those 9 years are going to pass whether you do this or not. So as I have you think about that, take this opportunity and run with it. And like I said, I'm not about the money. I don't need that type of income. Our house is paid off. We're modest. Even when I bought my brand new truck, just because I was super excited, I had a Beachbody income. I still went and bought a 3-year-old truck from Toyota. I didn't buy the brand new one. I don't need that stuff. But because of it, right, it's been able to allow us to be home with the kids. During the summer, I was home for 6 days in 8 weeks because we're at the amusement park with the kids. And then at night, I'm grinding away. I'm on my calls. We're at the house in St. George, and I'm working at night. When the kids are taking a nap, I'm working. I'm still working, but you work on your own terms. So as I want you guys to think about that, guys, you're going to have, the time is going to pass. And the last thing I want from any of you guys is a regret. A regret. Where it's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're and this is the way I think, guys. I couldn't imagine, take me back to where you guys are at right now. Telling my wife, I'm bringing you home from work. We're going to have this, life. We're going to do this. And telling your kids even. Or even if you didn't tell them, like 20 years from now, like being in a hard financial struggle, or you get laid off from your job because you cannot be guaranteed a job, right? I know that's going to happen to Rich. And that's going to happen it'll happen to many of you guys. And I'm not trying to put that in the universe, but it happens. Like, I can't imagine what the pain would be like 15 years from now for you to say like, hey, I just got let off. I don't know what we're going to do, but I should have taken advantage of that opportunity I had with Team Beachbody. If I would have just stuck with it consistently for these past 15 years, we would not be in this situation today. Like, I don't want any of you guys to have any type of regrets like that. So as we leave this, I want you guys to get this into perspective. If you do the 4 vital behaviors, you're going to make great friends. You're going to be healthy and strong, right? That's important. Your kids are going to see that you're not quitters, that you stick to your word, because quitting becomes a habit. And the people around you adapt your habits, which are your kids. Okay? So I want you guys to understand that part. And then what I want you to understand is that as you put that into perspective, like, what can you lose if you fully go all in with Beachbody? What can you lose? And then as we go forward, I want you to write these down. I want you to write down, like, here's a takeaway for you guys. Write down some things that are hard in your life. Write down the things that are hard. I'm talking about the hard things. Like when you're filling your gas tank and you got to stop it at $15 because you only have $23 in your checking account. That is hard. So write down the things right now. Write down things that are hard in your life. And guys, maybe I'm fortunate in this aspect, and if it's me and you haven't had this experience, put yourself into it. Like, go out as your part of your personal development and put yourself into a hard situation. Maybe it's go to a retirement home and talk to people about what their biggest regrets were. Ask them, what do you regret most in life? I guarantee you the majority of them are going to say that they didn't enjoy what they did with their work. They spent most of their time doing something they didn't enjoy. So for me, guys, like, I'm blessed in the fact that I got to serve a mission for my church. Like that picture I put up, like, I literally got to sit in people's homes where it's built from scrap tin, and they have a cinder block for a couch and dirt, and they swept their dirt floors, but they were proud of those dirt floors. They literally swept dirt floors. The door would be a piece of tin that they'd move, and they'd lean a rock against it. That they had to steal they had to wire their own electricity from one house to another, and it's dangling all across the streets, and it's not streets, it's just dirt paths. Look at the picture. Like, those are the homes of people, and they were happy. So as I look at that, put into perspective, like, you guys have it really good. So I feel fortunate that I've been in situations like that. So put into perspective what's really hard. That would be hard to live like that. I know those people. I love those people from Venezuela, and I know many of them today. And many of them work their butt off 12 hours a day, just like I did. 7 days a week. They're assigned a number, like how we have Social Security numbers. And they can only buy food on one day of the week according to their number. Only if there's food available at the store. That's how their situation is. And know how much they make for an entire week of work? $20 if good, $20 at best right now. Like, that is hard to live a life like that. And it's like, it's crazy. I don't want to get off on that, but like, it's crazy in that country now. People are killing people. People are murdering. People are stealing. And those people aren't bad people. It's just they can't feed their families anymore. Like, that's a hard life. That's a hard life to live. So guys, we have it so good. Like, get into perspective what's hard and what's not hard. Guys, getting on Facebook for 2 hours a day and avoiding distractions and messaging 50 people. Hey, what's going on? Hey, I saw you went to the park with your kid. Like, you know, how old is he? Is he in kindergarten yet? Hey, who's your son's teacher? Like, I noticed they go to the same school as us. Is that hard? And then to one day after a couple of weeks say, hey, you know what? just totally random. I can't believe I've never really showed you what I do as a fitness coach. If I were to send you a link to come listen to a call with us, would you listen to it? Guys, that is not hard. So I want you to get into perspective what's hard and what's not hard in this life. And guys, I know, and I'm going to just reiterate on this as we end it out because we're at the hour mark. You guys have goals and dreams. I don't believe that God ever placed a goal or dream in your heart without giving a way for it to happen, a way for it to come to pass. But you've got to work on, the story of the talents. He won't give you more until you work with what you have. So as you work, give everything you have right now so that God or the universe, whatever it is that you believe in, will give you more. Like I believe that I've given this team of 45,000 because I've given everything. I've taken everything, every gift and talent I've had, put it to the universe. Facebook Live, webinars, showing up to team pages every day, even though it seems like crickets sometimes, doing YouTube videos, writing blog posts, inviting people, no matter what. And I believe I've been given what we have today because I've worked on that, on giving myself and developing that every single day. So you guys have goals and dreams. They've been planted. I've read them. Some of them are painful. Some of them are so great that they bring you to tears as you think about them. Guys, some of my biggest dreams and goals, and I'm going to tell you some of them right now that are just personal, even financial, I am never, ever allowing one of my kids to ever be in a daycare again, like my youngest daughter was. I am never, ever allowing one of my grandkids to be in a daycare. Like I'm going to make my 5 kids work, right? But if they're in a hard place in their life, they're going to have to work through it, right? But I'm never going to have to be at a job, or Gabby, at a job where I can't say, let me watch your kids while you figure this out for yourself, right? While you work on your business or your idea or your dream, until you make it, you're not sending your kids to some strangers. We'll watch them. So that's why I'm working so hard today at Mycraft and what we do. I've also, so you guys kind of, so those of you who don't know, my mom has worked for me for 4 years. That was a goal and dream, to bring my mom and dad home from work. My parents, I'll say it, they're making their first ever 6-figure a year income this year. And we're providing that to them, and they work from home and work for us. Guys, that was a dream that I had. That was a goal that was placed in my heart, and I had no idea how it would ever be able to happen. But because that was planted in me, I worked hard and continued consistently in this business until it happened. And there's even bigger goals and dreams. Like you guys know, the team retreat we just did. We had my personally sponsored coaches in a house that we own. It's on the vacation market. Guys, bigger perspective. I want you guys to understand. Like I say, I don't need money. I don't even look at that. But that house made us $8,111 last month in rentals. Like I don't even look at that. But the reason I have that and I have goals to get 4 more is because I have 5 kids. I want to completely own 5 vacation home rentals, and I can teach my kids. This is what my 9-year-old just finished reading last night. I'm going to teach my kids how to be and think like I am, so that if they continue in that path, they can make good choices, and they can run those vacation home rentals as a career and expand from that, do what they love. They can manage, run those vacation rentals, use that income to pay their bills, help support their kids while they do what they love, whether it's dance, whether it's singing, whether it's guitar. I don't want them to go work as a secretary just because that's the only thing that will pay them money that they could pay their bills. So that's the big picture, the big dream that I'm working on in my personal life. And to put into perspective, none of that would be possible without Beachbody. And this is one thing that Carl said to us, Carl Deichler said at a leadership retreat. How successful people grow, Michelle. Carl Deichler said, hey guys, and this is how I think, guys. I want you guys to think about this. Carl said at a leadership event, first and foremost, this is not about money. You got to help. Your income will be a direct reflection of the number of people's lives that you change. Okay? Guys, we have 2 personally sponsored $1 million earners, Jennifer Greenberg and Brigitte Linford. Those guys have made over $1 million with Beachbody because I introduced them to Shakeology and a workout. And they fell in love with it, fell in love with the process. That's changing people's lives. Okay? And this is what Carl said. He said, guys, think of this pie. Beachbody is paying out hundreds of millions of dollars to Beachbody coaches. This is what he said. Hundreds of millions of dollars to Beachbody coaches. How big of a slice of that pie do you want? That's what he said. And that day at that leadership event, because my big goal when I started was to make $10,000 so Gabby wouldn't have to work. So it expanded over time. And I remember sitting there and I was like, I want a big piece of that pie. That's when I really started thinking, like, I want to work from home. I want to be able to spend time with my kids. I don't want to sit in that cubicle anymore. I don't want to end up like the head foreman or the head engineer and how they look at life. I want to end up like Carl. I want to live life like him. That excited. I want a big piece of that pie. And that day I made a big decision that I'll have a big piece of that pie. So what I want you guys to understand is you work on this right now. When we go global, you got to work right now where you're at in your own backyard with your friends, your family, your referrals, the people you attract on social media. But the bigger skill set you can build and team and foundation by action, not by studying the plan, by action, you're going to be ready to expand and help people in China or help people in Mexico or help people in the UK. But that won't happen if you don't take action today. So as you guys leave that, I'm going to leave you guys with a funny story that inspired me to think bigger, which was Craig Holiday. Once again, I said Craig Holiday. He helped me see the bigger picture and the perspective. When he talked about that income he made with building houses, he talked about he went on a 2-week vacation. He went on a 2-week vacation, left his employees in charge of finishing a job. It was like $30,000 worth of material. It was a really big house they were building. The roof they had to put on while he was gone was a $30,000 roof, really fancy, nice shingles. They did the entire roof with the shingles upside down, and he lost $38,000. And I looked at that and I was like, man, he's like, I took my 2-week vacation and I lost $38,000. He's like, here's what happened with my business that he was in. He said, I took my kids, and the guys, just so you know, I'm not going to do this. But he's like, I took my kids, it was like 3 years in, I took my kids, I took an entire year off of my business. And guys, don't do that. I'm not going to do that. But he's like, I took an entire year off. I went to, I think it was Africa, he said, and we rode elephants with my kids. We did things we never believed possible. I came back and my income grew by 40%. And he's like, this other business, to put in perspective, I lost $38,000 when I took a 2-week vacation. So I remember him telling me, he's like, Scotty, one day, he's like, you're going to go, and it's funny what one person's belief in you can do. He said, one day, and this was back in 2012, early 2012, he said, one day, you're going to get off a plane in China, and there's going to be a banner that says, welcome Scotty Hobbs, and there's going to be like 300 people there, and they're going to be like, well, he did an accent, he's like, welcome Scotty Hobbs, and you're going to be hosting a Super Saturday in China. And I was like, I am going to do that one day. When you said that, I was like, I'm going to work so hard that one day I'm going to be traveling the world and speaking at events. Okay. But it all started with the decision that I'm going to take this opportunity that I have right now, and I'm going to give it everything I have, because it's here. It's in front of me right now, and it works. I've seen thousands of people accomplish their goals and dreams with this business. Why not me? And my question to you guys right now is, why not you? So guys, we're over our time. I'm going to leave it at that. Kendra's going to bring you guys some awesome stuff coming up on Thursday at the same time. So make sure that you're on. But guys, take advantage right now to invite people to our Coach Opportunity meeting on Thursday. Invite 100 people. Tell them why you're doing this. Tell them why this is important to you. Tell them why you don't want to be at wherever you're headed in the next 10 years. Tell them this is your solution. Tell them that you believe this is a solution for them, and tell them to take a look at it. That's it. It takes 7 exposures of this business for somebody to be open to it. So remember that. Take action today and work your asses off, okay? I love you guys. That's what I want us to stand for, is being the hardest working, most passionate, big picture thinkers in Beachbody. And that's how we're going to take this team to 1 million coaches in 10 years. I believe it. So I love you guys. We'll see you guys next time. And I'm going to give a special invitation to you guys right now. If you have created some sort of success in your business so far, go into our group, go into our group, Elevate to team leader and practice your leadership. Share that tip on a live video. Get over your fears. Get over your insecurities by taking action. Get in there and say, hey, I hit Success Club for the first time last month, or I hit Success Club for 12 months in a row. Let me tell you what my biggest tip is. Get in there and share with each other, because that's how a team works. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.